So first of all, thank you, Dalton, for making the time today for this call. We are so excited to get to know you better. And before we kind of dive into some of these interview questions, I wanted to kind of lay out the objective for today's call. So our biggest goal for today is to kind of learn about Dalton, his international school background, his experience kind of applying for his first jobs, and now he is working as a recruiter, and how he kind of makes decisions on hiring and what a superstar applicant or candidate really looks like. So, Dalton, before we get into some of these questions, we'd love a little introduction from you about your journey so far from international school up until now.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me on, Davika.
Yeah.
I guess I'll add a quick disclaimer before we jump in. Any views that I express during this recording are my own and do not reflect any opinions held by my employer. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, um, I grew up mostly in the US, but then spent much of my high school years in Beijing, China, at the Western Academy of Beijing.
Wow.
Great school.
Yeah.
Did the full IB diploma there. And I think you were an IB student as well, right,
Yeah.
Davika?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Not fun.
That.
What were your
Uh,
HLs?
uh, wow. It's been such a long time since somebody asked me what my HLs were. It was history, English lit, and film studies as well.
Oh, those are
So
cool
yeah, very,
classes.
very arts heavy. Definitely not a STEM person myself.
Yeah, what year did you graduate?
2012.
Oh, nice. Cool. Nice. Anyways, go on. Sorry.
No worries. So I graduated from high school in Beijing and then went back to the US for college. And during that time, I studied international relations and Asian studies. I think my international high school experience definitely had an impact on, what I wanted to study in college.
Mhm.
And then while I was in college, I started working for the admissions office at my school.
Yeah.
And I'm a people person, so I really
Oh,
enjoyed that experience.
yeah.
I liked, helping new students learn more about my college. So after graduating, I got a full-time job with the admissions office. And my goal was always to work my way up to international recruitment.
Yeah.
Again, and I think a lot of that has to do with my background, having lived abroad. And I did eventually end up serving as the lead international recruiter at my college,
Yeah.
and so that was really enjoyable. I also spent a year doing counseling and guidance for high school students in the area where I was living, helping them with their schoolwork, helping them apply to colleges, apply to jobs, things like that. That's another experience that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But most recently, a couple of years ago, I decided that I wanted to kind of take this recruitment experience that I already had and pivot that into a corporate recruitment career.
Yeah.
And that is how I ended up in my current job as a recruiter for a financial management consulting firm.
Yeah, amazing. And as you know, most of our audience are actually international students in university, and they are in their final year or they're about to graduate. And I think the biggest thing we want to know is from like a recruiter's perspective. Like, can you give us like a step-by-step breakdown of how you kind of assess applications as a recruiter, and what is the methodology you use when you are reviewing applications and applicants?
So I should say I can't actually go into explicit detail about how, like, what parameters I'm using and how exactly I review applications,
Mm-hmm.
just for privacy purposes. But I
Yeah.
can tell you a couple of things about what I do when I'm reviewing applications. So first thing, education and experience, essentially your credentials, that's always going to be number one. No matter how amazing your cover letter is written,
Yeah.
how much interest you express, it's at the end of the day, you still need to be qualified for the position.
Yeah.
But beyond those kind of obvious things, there are a couple of other things that I'm always looking for. One is writing skills. Um, and I will note that, perhaps not every employer, not every industry will have that kind of emphasis
Mm-hmm.
on written English skills. But at my company, the folks that I'm hiring for need to write very detailed, very polished financial reports for our clients. So for us, actually, writing is really important. I really don't want to see resumes or cover letters filled with typos. Um, and believe it or not, that is a consistent issue. I have seen, really poorly written documents from everybody from recent grads to like extremely experienced, highly paid CFOs and CEOs. But you can kind of turn that to your advantage
Yeah.
as a job seeker. If you work really hard to polish your documents, then that can help you stand out. And that kind of leads into my next point. Another thing that I'm always looking for is what we call demonstrated interest.
Yeah.
Essentially, that means you're able to effectively convey, um, that you understand what our company does,
Yeah.
that you're excited about what we do, and that you're a good fit for the position as well.
Yeah.
So I would say those are kind of two of the biggest things I'm looking for. And then I'll add, in addition to those things we're looking for in the resumes and cover letters, at the interview stage, because I do also interview candidates, we're really going to be looking for polished professional demeanors in our candidates. Again, I work for a consulting firm. I need to know that the candidates I'm interviewing have the ability to interface professionally with our clients.
100%. And I guess my next question for you is that earlier you mentioned that the biggest things you look for are credentials and experience. Do you mind giving us a little breakdown of what exactly it is that you mean when you say credentials and experience?
Yeah, so I mean, like pretty much any job, we have a minimum required years of experience. We require a completed bachelor's degree, preferably in finance or accounting. Um, and even though at some employers, I'm not going to name any names here,
Yeah.
at other employers, they might not actually be giving you a fully accurate picture of what they are looking for in terms of years of experience. We do actually mean that at my company. It is a hard minimum requirement.
Yeah.
And that's something that is really going to be the first thing that we're looking for. But I do want to add, this really varies from industry to industry. Like for us, because we do accounting and financial management, we're looking for qualifications in that area. But for other jobs, they might not be as strict
Yeah.
about the, like specific kind of degree you have.
Yeah.
So for me, for example, I studied international relations and Asian studies
Yeah.
when I was in school. But I've ended up working in education. I've ended up working in corporate recruitment. Those two things aren't necessarily super related,
Yeah.
but just ended up working out all the same. So I think in point being in different industries, there are going to be different levels of emphasis on exactly what kind of degree you have and on exactly what kind of experience that you have.
Yeah.
But again, for us, it's really we're looking for accounting experience and preferably an accounting or finance degree.
Yeah, so like you mentioned accounting experience specifically. So when you say you're looking for X amount of years of experience, you mean specifically accounting experience?
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. Yeah, because I think a lot of, for example, as students, a lot of jobs, even entry level jobs, they kind of require you to have some sort of experience. And what would your recommendation be? I know that you work with accountants specifically, but we'd love to know, anyways, as a recruiter, like what would your recommendation be for students who are applying for entry level jobs, and how can they prepare themselves and gain experience as early as university years?
So that's kind of the $1 million question for this call, right?
Yeah.
And I think you raise a good point. Unfortunately, this is kind of a pervasive issue that a lot of entry level jobs are already looking for experience, or companies just don't have true entry level jobs. So it can be tough for somebody in their final year of school or a recent graduate. So there are a couple of different things I would recommend. The first thing, and I mentioned this earlier, is that when you are applying to a job, it's really important to research both the employer and the position you're applying for. And then you should be tailoring your documents, specifically your resume and your cover letter, to that job and to that employer. Again, at my company, that's something we're looking for. Maybe not all companies will pay such close attention to that. Um, but that's going to help you set yourself apart from other candidates. Another really important thing to do is just to do a lot of networking, and this is actually really important at the student or recent graduate phase of your career, because as we were talking about earlier, it can be difficult to find entry level jobs. So networking does two important things. A, it can just help you find job opportunities straight up.
Yeah.
But B, networking can also help you understand what these employers are looking for, so you can position yourself to be a better candidate. So really, that's one of the most important things to do, is to network, look for people who work in the industry that you're trying to get into, and ask them, what does their employer look for? Do they know about any opportunities for you? This is really, really important. And I also want to stress the fact that networking doesn't have to be exclusively people in that industry or exclusively professional colleagues. It's always worth reaching out to friends, to family, professors. You never know who might have a good opportunity for you. And I'm also going to give a shout out to all the university career centers out there. They have such amazing resources at their disposal for students, and unfortunately, students don't always take advantage of that.
That's true.
They have built relationships with employers over the course of many, many years. They have great tips for applying to jobs. So it's always worth checking in with the Career Center. And then the last piece of advice I'll share is, in terms of, how do I phrase this? I guess when you, right, that was what I was going to say. It's really important. Sorry, Lombi already blanked out. Professional organizations. This is another huge resource for finding jobs. So a lot of students get involved with professional organizations while they're in school. So for example, in the accounting industry, you have like Beta Alpha Psi, NABA, Alpha. Don't worry, we don't have to go through all those acronyms. But these professional organizations can really help you find opportunities, especially at the entry level. And then, if you join one while you're in school or after you graduate, it's usually kind of like a lifelong membership type of situation. So it can help you find opportunities continuously throughout your career. So that's kind of the last piece of advice I wanted to share. Professional organizations can be a huge source of networking opportunities for you.
Amazing.
Wait, I remember. I'm sorry, Divika. There was one other thing. So when people are hunting for jobs, usually I think they probably go to LinkedIn and Indeed, right?
Yeah.
And you should absolutely do that. I mean, most employers prefer those sites. But my point is that there are also alternative job sites. Sometimes they're industry specific. Sometimes they have kind of like a unique theme. So for example, Idealist is one that, if you're interested in working with nonprofits, if you're interested in kind of mission-driven work, Idealist is great. Handshake is a job platform that is specifically built for U.S. college students. So, I think it's worth looking into alternative job sites in addition to just kind of the big ones like Indeed and LinkedIn.
Amazing.
Okay, now I'm finished.
No, amazing. These are all fantastic answers. Like, please feel free to share as much. We love hearing from you. And I have a few questions from what you said. So the first question I have is that you said that you should tailor your application to that specific role that you're applying to and that employer. So can you give us like a little breakdown of what you mean by tailor your application?
Absolutely. So I'll start with the resume. So ideally, and I know this sounds like a lot of work, but I promise you it does pay off. Ideally, you should have a couple of different templates for your resume, especially if you're applying to jobs in different industries, different areas, because every employer is going to be looking at something different, or rather looking for something different. And so specifically, when you are changing your resume for different jobs, you want to think carefully about which responsibilities from prior jobs you're highlighting. So for example, let's say, I don't know, thinking about my experience as a recruiter. If I'm applying for a job that involves a lot of work with software, like maybe, I want to move into a job where I'm going to be managing my company's applicant tracking system. I've done that in the past, but maybe those bullet points are a little more buried in my resume. So I want to move those up to the top of the jobs where I did them so that the people looking at my resume are going to see that first. For recent grads and students, that's important, but you also want to be thinking about, most students have a section of their resume where they say relevant coursework and they list some of the classes they've taken. That's really important. If it's, for example, an accounting firm, you want to put those accounting classes front and center. Tailoring your resume. Also, sometimes folks have kind of like an objective or statement of purpose at the top of the resume. Obviously, that's a really important place to tailor it to the job you're applying to. And then for the cover letter, probably even more important to tailor that, because that's where we're really looking to kind of learn more about you as a person and understand, whether you're a good fit for us culturally and in terms of your qualifications. So your cover letter should be at least a little personalized. There's nothing worse than submitting a cover letter where, it's clearly a template and you forgot to put in the name of the employer. I see that. It'll say, I'm very excited to apply for, in parentheses, company name. And I'm just, it's not a good look. So, you do want to make sure that in addition to putting in the correct company name, that you have a little bit in there about, why you're interested and why you think you're a good fit. And so it can be very, very worthwhile just to do at least a little background research on the company. You may come across something that you can point to in your cover letter and say, hey, look, I have exactly the kind of experience you're looking for in your new such and such division. A couple of other things, just wanted to reiterate, proofreading, so important. And in the cover letter, the other thing that you want to avoid is just kind of reiterating your whole resume. That's kind of the classic cover letter mistake. Just listing out your responsibilities that you had in each job. That's what we have the resume for, right? So the cover letter really should speak more to your fit specifically for our company and for the specific position, and just, kind of a little bit more general background information on you as well, your goals. Again, things that we can't glean very easily from the resume.
Got it. Okay, so let me make sure I understood this correctly. So basically you're saying when you tailor your application, you should open the job application, the roles, the description of the role itself, and you should open your experience, and you should literally tailor it and follow what they to rephrase or to summarize what they are asking for, and using your own experiences, and based on what they're asking for, put whatever they're asking for at the very, very top, so that your experiences match with what they're looking for.
That's a pretty good way of summarizing it. I mean, really, just put yourself in the employer's shoes. What are they looking for? And then based on that, what should you be highlighting from your experience?
Amazing. I love that. And you mentioned networking is really, really important, especially as an entry-level graduate and trying to apply. So when you're kind of reaching out to folks on LinkedIn, how would you suggest structuring that message, and what is the best kind of way to structure that?
So you want to keep it really general, and you want to kind of reach out in a friendly way. It's really pretty simple. It's like, hey, Devika, I see that you've been working in the, outsourced accounting industry, and I'm curious to know if you know of any opportunities in the area. Would love to just kind of hear about your experience in that field as well. You can really just kind of frame it as a conversation. And actually, that should be your intent. you shouldn't just be reaching out to people and saying, hey, do you know of any jobs for me? As I mentioned earlier, part of networking is also understanding the industry that you want to get into. So it really is important just to have kind of conversations and pick people's brains about what they do for work. So I think, again, a general message is totally fine. I'm sure there's plenty of examples online, but the main thing to avoid is just reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, do you know of any jobs? That's kind of what you want to avoid.
Absolutely.
If it's I guess I should say, if it's a very good friend of yours, that's probably okay. But in a more professional context, if it's more of just a contact that you have, probably avoid just the outright, do you have a job question.
100% agree with you. Yeah, and I guess my next question for you is that, when you're looking at applications, can you give us an example of like a top performing candidate that applied for a role and you immediately were like, okay, I need to hire this person, or like, I want to interview this person? What exactly was it about their application that was just so amazing that you were like, okay, this is a yes person?
So I want to, and I apologize if I sound like a broken record, but I do want to be clear that this is certainly, I think, not the case at all employers, not the way all recruiters do their work. But for me, the kind of rock star candidate is one who meets and exceeds our qualifications, of course. They have beyond the minimum. They have both the required qualifications and the preferred qualifications.
Yeah.
But what really makes the difference between that candidate and the best candidate is one who has those things and also wrote a great cover letter.
Yeah.
If I look at a cover letter, I don't need you to be the next Shakespeare. You don't need to be, an incredible writer. I don't need to be blown away in tears by the end of your cover letter. But if you've taken the time to demonstrate, hey, I love what your company does, I'm really excited about it, here's some things that I've done that are relevant, that's going to make the difference. That's really kind of the final piece of the puzzle for the best rock star candidate.
Yeah, I love that you say relevance, and I really love that you really focus on that word. And I think a lot of times, like when students apply, like they have all this experience, but we need relevant experience. You know what I mean? So can you give us a little more information on what exactly does relevant experience mean, like especially as like an entry level graduate or someone applying?
So that's another thing that probably varies a great deal between employers. For us, it's pretty explicit. Financial accounting is financial accounting. That's what we're looking for. I think for an entry-level position in other industries, it might be a little trickier, and it might be worth shooting your shot if you're not exactly sure, right? Like if, I'm not going to name any other specific industries because I only have experience recruiting, candidates in a corporate environment for my consulting firm that does accounting. But, I think it's worthwhile to make a case for yourself when you're writing a cover letter to say, hey, I see you're looking for X number of years experience in this field. Well, I think what I did during X and Y internships is relevant because I did this and that. So I think it's really, in many cases, it's not firmly established what relevant experience is. In some cases, it is very established and very obvious, like what we have at my firm.
Yeah, 100%. And my final question for you, thank you so much for bearing with me. I have so many questions.
Of course. I like to talk a lot too.
Okay. Perfect. Great. So you mentioned qualifications, earlier. And when you say qualifications, I know you work with accountants, but like in the case of like entry level like roles and recent graduates, what does qualifications really mean? Does that mean like hard skills?
Yeah, when I say qualifications, I'm talking about hard skills. And I should add, so my second disclaimer of this interview, but I don't currently hire any entry level candidates. So I don't have a lot of experience in this area. I guess there are a couple of things you can do as a student or a recent grad to make your credentials stronger. a lot of industries, of course, require, a specific degree.
Yeah.
But some of them will also be on the lookout for certifications,
Yeah.
whether those be, just kind of like short-term software certifications
Yeah.
or more kind of comprehensive ones, putting a couple letters on the end of your name. So for example, in the accounting industry, at my company, we're always on the lookout for CPAs
Yeah.
and CNAs. Those are two types of accounting certifications.
Yeah.
Um, but on the other hand, if you wanted to be a forensic accountant,
Yeah.
there's a different, there are a couple of different actually certifications for that. Right now, tech obviously is kind of the biggest focus in most industries, especially with the entry of all these new AI technologies
Yeah.
into the business world. And so getting some experience, whether that be on the job experience or just training yourself in your spare time on automation, AI tech,
Yeah.
data visualization or analysis tech. A lot of industries are looking for that.
Yeah.
Potentially earning some side certifications, learning some new tech skills. Those are things that might help you, you know, be a stronger candidate if you're lacking in the kind of, number of years of experience or something like that.
Amazing. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think there's tons of like certifications now that teach hard skills like data analytics or project management or even like tech sales. There's a ton
Mhm.
out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so as a kind of final question for you, would you say that as a student, maybe the two most important things, would you say the two most important things that we should prioritize would be um, getting the necessary qualifications, aka building hard skills, and relevant experience, aka like internships, relevant internships would be the most important things that we should be doing so that we can get our first entry level job?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if I had to kind of like give you a quick framework for what a student should be doing, A, determine what field you want to go into.
Yeah.
B, do a lot of research, both by networking and by doing independent research to figure out what you need
Yeah.
to get an entry level job in that field.
Yeah.
And then three, after you've done all that background research, you'll know exactly, what credentials, what qualifications you'll need to succeed, whether that's an internship, a graduate degree, certification, or any of the above. So I think in some ways, it really is kind of a linear process like
Yeah.
that. Now, Davika, actually, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about that we haven't had a chance to go over. One of the other big problems I see in resumes, and this is another thing that you can make this mistake as a student or as a 30-year veteran.
Yeah.
Um, it's of the utmost importance to keep in mind that recruiters have very little time, probably like a couple of minutes at most, to review your qualifications.
Yeah.
So it is really, really important to make sure that your resume conveys your credentials effectively and efficiently. And there's actually kind of a short exercise that you can use to help with this. It's called the 20-second resume challenge. And I love doing this. So if you like print out a copy of your resume and then ask a friend, a teacher, a colleague to look at it, you let them look at it, you look at your watch. After 20 seconds, rip it out of their hands. Obviously, you won't have told them that you were going to do that in advance.
Yeah.
So, and then ask them, what are the things they took away from that 20 seconds? That's actually a great exercise because that gives you a sense of what jumps out of your resume. And again, unfortunately, most people who are reviewing job applicants will not have a lot of time to look at it. So I think it's a great exercise.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. It sounds like maybe like rip it out, rip it out of their end.
So it's both useful and fun and funny at the same time.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Honestly, I'm gonna try it. It sounds really fun. Okay, thank you, Dalton. Honestly, I feel like I learned so much today. I think we've gone through all the questions. Do you have any other like last minute questions or anything you want to share?
No, I think that's about it. I wanted to make sure that I included the 20-second resume challenge. But otherwise, I think we've covered everything I wanted to talk about.